Everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Madera City Council, special meeting of Madera Public Financing Authority Board, and special meeting of the Madera City Council as successor agency to the former Madera Redevelopment Agency. This is a notice of amended agenda. Today is Wednesday, July 21st, 2021. This meeting will be conducted pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order, which suspends certain requirements of the Ralph M. Brown Act. The City Council meeting will be held live streamed on the city's website at www.madera.gov/live. Members of the public may also participate in the meeting remotely through an electronic meeting via phone by dialing 669 9006833. Enter ID 968-0247-3470.
Yes. I don't have.
Excuse me? 0247-3470, hashtag followed by *9 on your phone to speak. Comments will also be accepted via email at citycouncilpubliccomment@madera.gov or by regular mail at 205 West 4th Street, Madera, California, 93637. Call this meeting to order. Alicia, would you please call roll?
Mayor Garcia?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Villegas?
I'm here.
Councilmember Gallegos? I believe you're on mute, Councilmember.
Here.
Councilmember Rodriguez is absent. Councilmember Montes?
Here.
Councilmember Evans is absent.
Thank you very much. For tonight's invocation, Artemio, are you prepared to lead us in prayer?
Yeah.
Okay, could you all rise, please?
Okay, I'm going to pray Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Thank you very much. Would you all please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Dan Foss.
Thank you, Mayor. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to the approval of the agenda. Alicia, would you make the announcement?
Thank you, Mayor. This evening I have two announcements. For item D1, the public hearing on landscape and lighting regarding assessments should be moved to section C of the agenda as item C2. And also, staff is requesting to pull items B9 and B10 from the consent calendar this evening.
I will ask my colleagues, do we have any further changes or modifications of the agenda? I will now ask for a motion from my colleagues.
I move to approve the agenda with the changes noted by our city clerk.
Second.
Motion to approve the agenda has been made by Councilmember Montes and seconded by Councilmember Gallego. Alicia, would you please call roll?
Councilmember Gallegos?
Yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez is absent. Councilmember Montes?
Yes.
Councilmember Evans is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Villegas?
I'm here.
that a yes vote or a no vote on the approval of the agenda, Mayor Pro Tem?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. And Mayor Garcia?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously with 4 yes votes.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to public comment. The first 15 minutes of the meeting are reserved for members of the public to address the council on items which are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. Speakers shall be limited to 3 minutes. Speakers will be asked but are not required to identify themselves and state the subject of their comments. If the subject is an item on the agenda, the mayor has the option of asking the speaker to hold a comment until that item is called. Comments on items listed as a public hearing on the agenda should be held until the hearing is opened. The council is prohibited by law from taking any action on matters discussed that are not on the agenda, and no adverse conclusion shall be drawn if the council does not respond to public comment at this time. Alicia, do we have any public comment?
Yes, Mayor, I've received a few emails and we also have a caller on the line. If you'd like to take that caller first.
Absolutely.
And caller, if you would please unmute yourself. Telephone number ending in 7202.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I had a comment to make regarding last meeting that was held when the conversation was being discussed about meeting in person. So after I watched it back a second time just to make sure I had everything clear. So I'm very disappointed because the whole reason that from watching it back that Evan, Santos, and Villegas don't want to meet in person is because they don't want to be around anybody because they're afraid of getting COVID. So I went on Facebook and you can see Councilwoman Evans posing cheek to cheek with somebody days before this meeting. You can see Santos attending an event days before the meeting. Then after the meeting, after they said that they will not meet in person because they are afraid of COVID, Santos has pictures of himself at a quinceañera, and Evans and Santos were both at an indoor event last Friday. So why wouldn't they want to meet in person if they're not afraid to go to parties around town? They're not afraid to go to political events. Why wouldn't they want to meet in person? So I watched it back, and you can see that Santos is texting people before votes. And so my only conclusion is that he is texting Evans and Villegas and telling them to vote no, because prior to it, Evans sounded like she was going to vote yes, that she would be willing to listen to the public health advisor, and then she would be willing to meet in person after that. But as soon as Mayor Santos Garcia said that he was going to vote no on it, she changed her mind immediately. And so I think that you guys need to know that we're paying attention. Us Maderans, we are paying attention now to what's going on, and we are not happy with it at all. And that's the end of my comment.
Thank you very much for that. Do you have other comments, Alicia?
Mayor, there is another caller on the line with phone number ending 6590.
I don't believe she has her hand, or he or she has her hand up.
Okay. I do have a few emails to read, Mayor. The first one is from Rafaela Ruiz. Madera received a couple $1 million grant to revitalize downtown in 2020. Stated improvements included fixing sidewalks, streets, and parking. However, the parking situation is adequate for the amount of traffic that parks in downtown. Sidewalks are adequate, and the streets do not need immediate repair. Planned repairs and questions. The burned down and removed mini mart is planned to be rebuilt for what purpose? What vendors would occupy the space, and how large would it be? According to the City of Madera Main Street Project website, this project is stalled as of January 2020. Have the grant funds been used for another plan, and what was it used for? Will the funds be replenished, and how? What are the current action plans or items to revitalize downtown? What business are we looking to attract, and when will that project begin and be completed by? Madera is stalled in growth. We do not have adequate jobs that pay a livable wage. Downtown is a rotted shell of potential, and build more low-income housing than try to build higher-income homes. Madera needs action now with a developed downtown so we can begin to rebuild the heart of the city. We have the potential to replace Napa as the heart of wine country and compete for valuable tourist income. Please make action now, not 10 years from now when the project is forgotten. This comment is from Marilyn DeLasia. I'm writing to see if you guys can change the square footage requirement for vertical integration applicants from 20,000 square feet to 10,000 square feet. In California, cannabis law requirements, there are different options. There is a license that is given out called license type 2A, which is small indoor growers permit, which is square feet requirement would be between 5,001 square feet and 10,000 square feet. If businesses aiming for micro licenses, vertical integration, changing the requirements would make sense. It would facilitate finding a building for many applicants. Also, again, reminder to allow for more equity licenses being given out to the community from 2 to 4. Thank you for your time. This message is from Kirk Atamian. Two things I like to bring to council's attention. First, that there is a great Facebook group called Madera Informed. We discuss Madera and what's going on. One of the questions I posted was, should the city council go to live meetings or stay on Zoom? You should read how the people of Madera feel. Second is that the city council does not work well together. Each week, items are either sent back to city for more discussion of deadlock 3-3. People of Madera needs the city council to work together with each other. As a city, we are not moving forward. I do my best to help close the gap between the city government and the people of Madera. We all want the same thing, a better Madera. This message is from Gabriel Hernandez. Good evening, everyone. I wish I could be here in person to share my comments with you. However, you, Mr. Mayor Garcia, Councilman Villegas, and Councilwoman Evans have not let that be an option. You push to keep the doors closed at City Hall and not be as transparent as you should be with your constituents and community members. I've tried calling in and it is incredibly challenging to do so. So when I can't click an unmute button and am pushing *6 continuously with no luck. I find it incredibly intriguing as to how you, Mr. Mayor and Councilwoman Evans, didn't seem to be bothered by meeting in person when you celebrated Juneteenth. Or the other day when you, Mr. Mayor and Councilwoman Evans, attended a function hosted by Senator Padilla and Congressman Costa, in which the two of you met again indoors with dozens of others. Or the other day when you, Mr. Mayor, visited the National Letter Carriers Association in person. Or the other day when Mr. Mayor met in person to celebrate our hardworking police department swearing in and retirements. By the way, the hardworking men and women at the police department don't get to pick and choose when they can or can't do their job in person. Rather, they put their lives on the line every day. Or the other day when you, Mr. Mayor, celebrated in person what appeared to be a very large quinceañera gathering. You were elected to lead, to be the voice of the people and the hardworking folks of the city of Madera. What you are showing is absolute cowardice and hypocrisy. So, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Villegas, and Councilwoman Evans, what's the issue? Don't give me an answer again that contradicts yourself by your actions. I hope the public sees, understands, and remembers this next time you are up for election. Your actions and direction are absolutely unwise, and it's a shame we are stuck with leaders like you for the next few years. That would conclude the public comment I've received, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Alicia.
We
will move on. There are no written communications. We do have a presentation, item 1, Department of Public Health update on COVID-19. Sarah, I believe you're up.
Yes, thank you for inviting me again to be back with you. The current case rate for Madera County is 5.6, and our positivity rate is 2.7%. In case interviews, we've discovered that the increase is largely due to traveling, both within states, other states, and international travel, as well as various kinds of social gatherings. That follows trends that we have seen over time. And so obviously people are mixing more, engaging in more activities, and of course that is going to impact our case rate. Our hospitalizations remain unalarming. They are fluctuating, and currently we have 3 Madera County residents in Madera County Hospital, the Madera Community Hospital in Madera County. Our vaccination coverage at this point in Madera County is at least 1 dose. We're at 49.7% and fully vaccinated 42.7%. For areas A and C in Madera County, which cover the city, vaccination coverage for single dose is actually at 56% and 54% respectively. So a little bit higher within the city for vaccination coverage. And all of these percentages are reflective of the population that is currently eligible. We do have, of course, children under the age of 12 that are not eligible. So that's not included in the percentages. Good news is that in terms of vaccine coverage, we do have a higher percentage among our seniors. Over 55 is 67%, over 65 is 78%, and over 75 is 74%. So that's really good in terms of protecting our vulnerable population. Most people are very interested in learning about the Delta variant. It's important to know that we do not sequence all cases. It's a sampling of cases that are sent for sequencing due to cost and volume. And what it's able to do is get a representation of hospitalized outbreaks, travel cases, so that we're kind of understanding the movement of the variant. But of the results that we've gotten back, we do have 16 sequenced specimens that are Delta variant in Madera County. 14 of the 16 were unvaccinated individuals. Of the 2 that were vaccinated, only 1 of them was fully vaccinated. And we've had 2 of the Delta variant cases that were unvaccinated have been hospitalized, and 1 did pass away. So what we're learning about the Delta variant is that it is very effective. In fact, it's 88%, the mRNA vaccine is very effective against the infection from the Delta variant. It's 88% effective in comparison to more like 90 or 95% effective for the original strain. So that's excellent news, especially for those who are fully vaccinated with mRNA. So those are the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine are both that kind of vaccination. And in Madera County, due to supply, more of our county residents have been vaccinated using either Pfizer or Moderna. And so we do have that higher level of protection. It is still important for people to focus on protecting themselves as best they can and others around them. And the ways that we can do that, number 1, get vaccinated. That really is the long-term solution for this population crisis that we have, this pandemic, where we'll truly be able to move on. Other types of solutions are those mitigating factors like distancing and masking. Those do work in slowing the virus in terms of transmission, but what it does is it flattens the curve and it pushes out how quickly people get the virus. But you can assume that over time, unvaccinated people will eventually get COVID just through normal activity. So it's a matter of how soon that person gets it if they are unvaccinated. And even people who are vaccinated can get the virus because it's 88% effective. So, and that's an average. Different people, depending on age, underlying health condition, their immune system is going to be more or less robust after being fully vaccinated, but on average, 88%. So there are those individuals who get it. But as we can see in the hospitalizations, that they tend to have milder symptoms and are not having acute illness. So vaccination is the most important thing. And in California, the case rate amongst vaccinated individuals is 2. So Madera County case rate in total for everyone for Madera County is 5.6, to give you context. But for California, among vaccinated people, the case rate is 2. Among unvaccinated people, it's over 13. So we're really looking at right now where we currently are is that cases are largely among unvaccinated, and hospitalization and deaths are among unvaccinated individuals. There are options with regards to reducing transmission for in-person gatherings and meetings, distancing, of course. And so part of the way that people do that often is by limiting capacity and just spreading people out in terms of their seating. The plexiglass, I know that's a question that people often has, is really only effective if the interaction is very short. So it's perfect for the grocery store checkout aisle, where you're just going to be there for about a minute. That would be protective. But if you're sitting for a long period of time, several hours in the same room with others, plexiglass is really not going to be helpful because it's in the air and it can travel around and above the plexiglass. If people are not able to distance, entities are able to, businesses, government, individual groups are able to require universal masking for events and meetings that they hold. And also those who are not vaccinated, because there are many people who can't be vaccinated due to a health condition they might have. Those individuals, it's recommended that they wear an N95 mask, as an N95 protects the person who's wearing it, as opposed to a cloth face covering that protects other people. So cloth face coverings really work well if everybody is wearing them, but not to protect the individual who's concerned. That's where an N95 is recommended. So in summary, COVID-19 is still circulating. We are watching the progress of the Delta variant very closely, and you can monitor our case rate and what's going on our dashboard at any time, even if you're between meetings and I'm not available, but you can also call me and I'm happy to talk with you. The most important message is encouraging people to be vaccinated, and asking people who are not vaccinated to continue to wear face coverings for the protection of others, as they're more likely to be transmitting the virus. And then, the basics. If people are not feeling well, that's when they should participate remotely in meetings if a hybrid model is available, or stay at home and get tested, of course, if they're feeling symptomatic. We really encourage those who are vaccinated to share with other people around them, especially friends and family, that they have been vaccinated, and support that. That has been the #1 influencer for people who have felt hesitant. They're watching people around them to see if they'd like to be vaccinated, and that encouragement goes a long way. That's why we have our Refer a Friend program, in which the person referring, as well as the person who's getting vaccinated, each receive $25 gift card. And I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Sarah. Before I open it up for questions, I believe, Alicia, you have someone who has their hand raised in the public, for the public on the phone.
There's a caller, Mayor. Caller with phone number ending 6590. Please unmute yourself. Hello, caller.
Hello, Mayor and Council.
Yes.
My name is Rico Saldivar. I'm calling on behalf of Mainstream Medicinal for Madera. We are planning to apply for a cannabis license. We've voiced our opinions several times, just our concern in having another set of equity licenses available to small business owners like ourselves and me and my partners. We just haven't heard anything in response to several comments that we've mentioned on several phone calls now. And I was just hoping to reach out and find out if there's going to be anything coming up soon in the future, so we could kind of have a general idea of, what's to come, give us a little bit of direction on this. And I also was concerned about the vertical integration license on the square footage. Obviously, that's become an issue for me and my team. We're having a very difficult time locating and acquiring a building that will lease to us, due to either not wanting to have anything to do with cannabis, and or if they owe on their loan, they're unable to lease per the bank or lender, according to them, because it's still not legal federally. So we're having that issue. That's the reason why we're so concerned and adamant about wanting the square footage reduction. I do have another proposition in terms that I'm hoping could be another option to open up that might satisfy that square footage requirement. And that would be for there to be some type of a vertical cultivation. So meaning that we could find a building that is under 20,000 square feet, but if the ceiling and the building is tall enough, we could stack vertically and cultivate vertically 2 levels basically. So that would meet the requirement on the 20,000 square feet, but we would still need to have that agreed upon actually, obviously, and have that passed through council and the mayor. And it's just something that I felt was a possibility and important to bring up just to try to, you know, open things up a little bit more for us as far as options go, because it's really getting a little frustrating. It's getting extremely difficult to get a building. We're just, you know, we're just trying to figure it out. And we hope that you guys could can have a meeting sooner than later and get us back some information regarding that. And that's all I have to say, and hope to somehow get in touch with council members in regards to this. If you're able to reach me or if I could reach you per email, which I have, I've tried to reach out several times to Councilwoman Cece, and I haven't had any response. I'm going to just keep doing my due diligence and try to stay on this, because we would really like some answers and a little direction and a little help with this, because everything's going to happen fast, and we don't want to miss out on this. We're making every effort and exhausting in every avenue that we've got to try to make this happen. And we just feel strongly that if we could get a little bit of movement on this in terms of opening things up a little on these other options, that it'll make it, you know, a little bit better for us to find and acquire a building. So we'd really like to move forward. Hope to hear from somebody. I'll be shooting emails out shortly, and I just really hope to get a response. So thank you for your time and this opportunity. Everybody have a great evening, and that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you very much for your comments. Back to Sarah. Does anyone have any comments or questions for Sarah? I have Council Chambers, but I'm not sure which one of you is wanting to speak. It says Council Chambers. So either Mr. Montes or Ms. Gallegos.
It's Councilwoman Gallegos. I'm just a little disappointed. Thank you, Sarah, for coming. That Councilwoman Evans is the one that really wanted you here to give some input on the variant and the COVID situation. And my other colleagues were concerned about coming back in person. So I'm hoping that the other 3 that are here, if they had questions about concerns on coming in public or being with the rest of us who are all vaccinated, I'm hoping that they'll ask those questions tonight, because we do have the expert in the room right now. Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments? I don't see any hands raised. Do we have any public comment, Alicia?
No public comment, Mayor.
Councilmember Montes.
Thank you, Mayor. Oh, so I just wanted to, and I apologize if I missed it. So the guidelines for meeting in person, indoors, Sarah, is that something that we're able to do safely here for the public?
There are safety measures that can be put in place, and in the Department of Public Health, we are hosting in-person meetings. So I am happy to work with staff to develop a plan that would make it as safe as possible. For those who are most concerned and would like to protect themselves, then N95 a mask is the best way to accomplish that. And then there are other provisions such as requirements of those who are in attendance, capacity limits, posting signs that demonstrate that people who are vaccinated can enter without masks. You can also require everyone to wear masks if you want to, if that would help people feel more comfortable. So there's various options, and I'm happy to work with staff to kind of navigate that and create a plan that is workable.
Thank you, Sarah. Hopefully we'll take you up on that offer.
I don't see any more hands raised.
The other thing I'd like to add, because it just came to mind, is COVID is fluid. Case rates go up, case rates go down. And so it's just because you make a decision to step forward to do one thing does not mean that you can't choose to do something else in the future. And I've informed my staff about that as well. For right now, we're going to allow in-person meetings, and if things change, then we might change because this is a dynamic situation.
With that, I'd like to thank you, Sarah, for coming and joining us and give us an update. It's always appreciative of us of what you give us as far as information. So I want to thank you very much for coming and joining us today.
Thank you. I'll stick around for a little bit in case there are any other questions that occur to folks as time goes on.
Okay, thank you very much. We move on to introductions. Yvette, I believe you have an introduction.
Yes, sir. We do have a new employee in the grants department, and I'm going to turn it over to Roger since he will be making the formal introduction.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. It is my pleasure to introduce Joe Abear. That's how you pronounce it. He goes by Joe Abear, even though his spelling is sounds like Heber, but it's really Abear. So we're very excited to have him. He has joined as a program manager within the grants department a couple of weeks ago. We're very excited that he has joined the city of Madera. He has over 25 years of experience in the field of purchasing with very large companies and wealth of experience, really. We're excited to have him. And if I could give you a couple of minutes, Joe, to introduce yourself and share a few words, that would be wonderful.
Sure. Joe Abear. Very excited and happy to be here. It's been day 12. It's been an exciting journey so far, and so I'm looking forward to doing for the future. My background, as Roger stated, is I've spent a number of years in supply chain and purchasing, and I also spent a number of years managing a nonprofit down in South Fresno. And I come most recently from an aerospace company in Hollister, from where I was a senior supply chain manager, and have family, 4 girls, empty nesters. And I'm, again, just to emphasize, I'm very excited to be here. This has been a dream of mine to get into city government and actually make a contribution to the community that way. So again, that's all I have.
Well, welcome aboard, Joseph. Thank you very much for joining our team. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Herbert? I don't see any. Well, thank you very much again. I'm sure you're going to do a great job. We will now move on to workshops. Item A1, the Federal American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. I believe, Roger, you have this also?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if it's okay, Mr. City Manager, Mr. Rodriguez, City Manager, would like to introduce the topic.
Okay.
Thank you, Roger. Good evening, Mayor, Council members, Arnoldo Rodriguez. The item before you this evening is an opportunity for us to discuss some positive news. I think as the council and the community is aware, over the past 17, 18 months, during the pandemic, it's been extremely challenging times for all of us as individuals, as a community, as an organization. And in the midst of all that, I feel like we finally got some excellent news as an organization. U.S. Congress a couple of months ago passed the American Rescue Plan, and for the first time in U.S. history, every local jurisdiction is eligible to receive direct funding from the federal government. This goes to every state, every county, every city, every tribe, every form of government in the U.S. How funds were tabulated was the Department of Treasury utilized the Community Block Development Grant formula And that's, in this particular case, it's usually not good news for the city of Madera, but in this particular case, it's positive because it's based on localized demographics. So in a community like Madera, where we typically have the greatest need, we are eligible for additional dollars in comparison to potentially more affluent community on the coast or in other parts of the U.S. And Roger, if you wouldn't mind beginning the PowerPoint. And so I'm going to introduce a couple of slides, and then I'm going to put it over to Roger for the hard work. So can you go next slide, Roger? So currently, based on the formula that per Congress, and again, this is being administered through the U.S. Department of Treasury, the city of Madera is slated to receive $23 million, actually $23.1 million. Total funds across the U.S. is $350 billion. That's billion with the B. The city recently received half of these funds. So the city of Madera has received $11.5 million. That $11.5 million has not been spent. We do have it in the bank. Staff has not received authorization from council. We have not received direction from council. Rather, tonight's meeting is the first meeting. There are a number of restrictions that apply to the funds. When Congress was initially discussing these, going back several months, a lot of the discussion by Congress was to give great deference to local agencies to spend the funds as needed or as they deem necessary. But with any funding amount, there's always strings attached, and in this case, there are a lot of strings attached. We are going to be recommending a public hearing. The purpose of tonight's meeting is not the public hearing. Rather, the purpose of tonight is to introduce it. What we would like to do as staff is bring it back to the next council meeting on August the 4th to receive formal direction. Again, so what we want to do this evening is provide a 30,000-foot level overview of the funding, and then at that point we'll come back to council for more direct funding. But we did want to provide just an overview of some of the potential items that we can spend the funding on. Roger, would you mind going to the next slide? So I'll be turning it over to Roger here shortly, but one thing that I did want to add is that staff has received a number of inquiries from local community members. We understand that some of our neighboring communities have begun to allocate funds for rent stabilization, for small business, to provide one-time funding, which is eligible to essential employees and those types of items. A lot of those are eligible expenditures. In our particular case, we're going to be recommending to council a slightly different approach. However, it's all much needed, and that's not to dismiss any of the current community needs. There are needs bound. However, with that being said, we feel that the prudent thing to do would be to try to provide the greatest benefit to the greatest number of people in the community, and we think we have a plan to do just that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Roger, if that's okay, and Roger will go over some of the items. Roger, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Yes, this funding of $23 million allocated to the city of Madera it is such a big blessing for the community, and it is very timely for the needs of the city. So there's a number of reasons why it is critical that the council moves quick with direction, because for one thing, we need to spend the money fairly quick. We have a limited time to spend the money. It's a few years, a couple of years of it needs to be spent as far as the deciding on the projects, and then in the reporting and the final expenditures will extend all the way to 2026, the end of 2026. But the decisions need to be made. Also, there's a potential impact on current outstanding rate study and the potential impact on utility bills if council would decide to allocate some monies to some of the infrastructure projects. So, but it is important for the council to have an understanding on what are the items that are allowed within this this area, this funding. So as you can see on the screen, we do, there's a, it needs to be allocated. Some of the spending could be on to support public health response related to COVID, could be to replace the public sector revenue loss, if there's any. It could be for water and sewer infrastructure, to address negative economic impacts related to the pandemic, and premium pay for essential workers, and it could also be utilized for broadband infrastructure. Within the support for public health response, services to contain and mitigate the spread of COVID, it could be utilized for behavioral healthcare services, and it could be used for payroll to cover benefits for public health, healthcare, human services, and public safety staff to the extent that the work is on COVID. To replace public sector loss of revenue, it could be used to fund government services to the extent of the reduction of revenue experienced due to the pandemic. That could be, for example, the loss of revenue for the Parks Department, which it was closed for most of the year on various activities. It could be another example, the loss of revenues on the lack of collections for utility bill. That's it can also be to ensure continuity of vital government services by fulfilling budget shortfalls. The revenue loss is calculated relative to the counterfactual trend, beginning with the last full fiscal year pre-pandemic and adjusted annually for growth. So really, we need to do some analysis and determine what has been impacted on COVID to see if we qualify for revenue shortfall. It could be for revenue, and it could be for sewer and water infrastructure. We could make necessary investments to improve access to clean drinking water. It's eligible for improvements to infrastructure, and also eligible uses aligned to Environmental Protection Agency, in essence, clean water. It can be used to address negative economic impacts, respond to economic harms to workers, families, small businesses, impacted industries, and the public sector, deliver assistance to workers and families, support small businesses, speed the recovery of impacted industries, rebuild public sector capacity. Premium pay for essential workers, to offer additional support to those who have and will bear the greatest health risk because of the service and critical infrastructure sector. Premium pay to essential workers, both directly and through grants to third-party employers. Prioritize low and moderate income workers who face the greatest mismatch between employment-related health risk and compensation. So key sectors include healthcare, grocery and food, education, childcare, sanitation, and transit. So with the sewer and water, one of the big benefits there is that it's very straightforward if utilized on capital infrastructure, meaning there's less audits on that. It benefits the entire city, the whole community, if it was to be utilized in that regard. It mitigates the rate increase on pending rate study. So the recommendation is that we get council direction. Perhaps we begin tonight. And also, if it's okay with council, that we conduct a public hearing on the next council meeting so that we give opportunity to the public to voice their opinions. So with that, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Roger. Arnoldo, do you have anything to add after that?
Yes, I sure do, Mayor. Thank you very much, Roger, and thank you, Council. One of the city staff has been engaged in a couple of concurrent studies. One of them is the Proposition 218, commonly referred to as a sewer and rate study. This council has recently heard that that we are engaged with the consultant who is reviewing our existing rate studies and the fees that we charge for services for our enterprise departments. And at the same time, we are also engaged in the development impact fee study. One thing that we know for certain is if we want to continue to make improvements to critical infrastructure, sewer and water, we are going to need additional funding. Typically, that additional funding comes in the form of grants, in the form of loans, or in the form of ratepayers. One of the goals that we've had as staff is to try to mitigate any potential increases as best as we can. However, as this council is aware, any improvements to sewer and water is expensive, and due to inflation, costs have gone up substantially in the past couple of years. When we come back to the next council meeting, one thing that staff will be recommending is that this council consider allocating the funds to sewer and water. We do have a very long list of projects that need attention. As part of the rate study, we are looking at different financing options. Some of those options include grants. Another option includes a request that the city recently made to U.S. Congress that is currently in the, I believe it's in the Appropriations House, if I recall correctly, where we made a request for $4.3 million for improvements in our sewer trunk main on Avenue 13. Some of it's going to come in the form of loans or bonds. Loans and bonds are basically, it's a loan that the city has to pay back. All of those options are on the table. However, all of those options, the vast majority of them include the city paying for it or our ratepayers paying for them. And one thing that this funds, going back to something Wander said, we are extremely fortunate to be the recipients of $23 million. And one thing that that I would caution us collectively about is be extremely prudent. This is not, in my 19 years in local government, I've never seen anything like this. And I'm not confident that we're going to have another opportunity to receive this kind of direct funding from the federal government. So again, we don't have all of the numbers on the rate study that we're currently engaged in because we're still working through a lot of the details. We do have a relatively, the list of needed projects is assembled. However, we are still ground truthing some of those numbers and we're trying to put some cost to those. But it's challenging because there's our consultants are engaged, city staff is expending a tremendous amount of energy going through those items, trying to make sure that we have a good understanding of all of our needs. And it's a long list and it's a very expensive list. And so with that, we'll be coming back to council for a formal public hearing. We'll be requesting some direction from council. So with that, hopefully I didn't miss anything, Roger, or if the mayor of the council have any questions, we would be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. If I may add something, the rates within this community are very modest compared to other cities within the valley. But you know, if we were to leave things without assistance, the rate increases would be significant because there's just a lot of projects that are needed. And so that's why it couldn't be on a more timely basis for this. So hopefully we will provide some more information on the next meeting.
Thank you very much for that. It seems as if $23 million is a lot of money, and it is, believe me, it's taxpayer money. But when we're looking at infrastructure for a city our size, we definitely could use that money to help boost our capacity for our city. We don't want our drinking water or sewer to break down. We've had some issues in the past with both wells and sewer lines. And so I would be supportive. The only thing I would ask Arnoldo is to come back with that report showing us what those projects are that you would like to prioritize. and just a general ballpark figure of what they would cost, so that we can make an educated decision on that.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
I don't see any hands raised. Do we have any members of the council wanting to ask a question? Okay, so this is informational. We will come back at our next meeting and we'll have further discussions. Thank you very much, Roger and Arnoldo, for this report. We will now move on to item B, consent calendar. Matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, a member of the public or a member of the council may request an item be removed from the consent calendar and it will be considered separately. Alicia, you have an announcement on the consent calendar?
Mayor, we took care of that at the approval of the agenda. We were pulling item B9 and B10.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any members of the public wanting to speak on the consent calendar?
I do not have any public comment. And no one is
looking
on
for a motion from my fellow council members.
Consent calendar excluding items B9 and B10.
Is that you, Mr. Montes?
Yes.
Okay.
They've already been excluded from the agenda, Mr. Montes.
Yeah.
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion to approve the consent calendar by Councilmember Montes, second by Councilmember Villegas. Alicia, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Gallegos?
Yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez is absent. Councilmember Montes?
Yes.
Councilmember Evans is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Villegas?
Yes.
Mayor Garcia?
Yes.
Motion passes with 4 yes votes.
Thank you very much for that. We will move on to item C, public hearings. Item C1 is a public hearing to approve the community development block grants for 2021 and 2022 action plan final funding allocations, including reprogram funds to $1,312,192 and approve sub-recipient agreements. I believe, who do we have? Is this yourself, Yvette?
Yes, it is, sir.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. This is, in fact, another CDBG public hearing for the development of the 2021-2022 action plan. Before proceeding, I'd like to share my screen and start the PowerPoint presentation. And is it in full screen? Can you see the PowerPoint presentation?
I see the agenda. I don't see the PowerPoint.
Let's try this again. You see it?
No, Yvette, we're still looking at the agenda for the meeting.
Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna have to ask, Alex, can you please share the screen? It's not coming. My second screen's not turning on.
Of course, allow me a moment. Can you all see my screen there okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So this is in fact the public hearing on the Community Development 2021-2022 Action Plan final allocation. As council might recall, we did bring this item before you during a June 16, 2021 council meeting to request that council approve tentative allocation. We are back this evening requesting approval of final allocation.
Yvette, on your PowerPoint, it says 191, and on the agenda, it says 192. Do we have a correct amount on that?
It is 192.
Okay. Thank you.
Next one. So the objective of this public hearing is for City Council to receive input from the public before Council makes final allocations for the CDBG 2021-2022 Action Plan funds, and for Council to make final funding allocations and then adopt resolutions approving the CDBG subrecipient agreements. And for the remaining portion of the presentation, I am going to team up with Alex that will be joining me in presenting the remaining slides.
Good evening, council members and Mr. Mayor. Just a quick recap on the applications received for the CDBG program. We did receive a total of 15 applications. As you can see on the screen here, 2 were for administration, 8 for public services, and 5 for capital projects. Now, each of these categories do have maximums. So for administration, you can see that the maximum that can be allocated is $189,808. For public services, $142,356. Now, capital projects is a category of its own that does not have a maximum. So if council decides to completely allocate the funds of $1,312,191 to capital projects, it may. Yvette?
And for the administrative category, City received 2 applications. One was by City of Madera, and that was a request for CDBG program administration. The second one was by CAPMC, Fresno Madera Continuum of Care, for the point in time count administration. Both the Block Grant Commission and the City Council agreed to fund the city, to allocate City of Madera $159,808 and CAPMC $20,000 for a maximum and total amount of $189,808.
Now here we'll review on the screen here 3 of the 8 applications received for public services. The first one was for Big Brothers Big Sisters for their high school BIGS program. The Block Grant Commission recommended $5,000 and City Council tentatively allocated the $5,000. Doors of Hope for their Parenting Supportive Services program. The Block Grant Commission also recommended $5,000 and City Council agreed with a $5,000 tentative allocation. And Madera Coalition for Community Justice for their downtown street art project. The Block Grant Commission had recommended a $0 funding and City Council allocated tentatively $5,000. The Madera Rescue Mission for their homeless services program, the Block Grant Commission had recommended $20,356. City Council had tentatively allocated $17,856. Olive Charitable Organization for their Safe House had the Block Grant Commission had recommended $39,000. The City Council had tentatively allocated $36,500. And for Pequeños Empresarios, for their virtual program of child entrepreneurship education, the Block Grant Commission had recommended a $0 funding, and City Council had tentatively funded $5,000. And lastly, Madera Coalition for Community Justice, they had 2 applications submitted.
This is the second one for their Madera rental assistance program, specifically for non-COVID related rental assistance. So the Block Grant Commission had recommended them $38,000. City Council had tentatively allocated $35,500. And the City of Madera Parks and Community Services Department for their Madera Senior Nutrition and Recreation Program, the Block Grant Commission had recommended $35,000, and City Council tentatively allocated $32,500, which brings us to our total maximum of $142,356. Yvette?
Okay, moving on to the capital projects public improvements category. On this one, there was a lot of similarities between the Block Grant Commission recommendations as well as what council tentatively allocated. So the first application came from James McCallion, and James McCallion, DBA La Madera Accessible Living Studios, is to build and rehabilitate affordable housing in the city. The request was $60,000, and I'm sorry, the recommendation by the Block Grant Commission was $60,000, and council also allocated $60,000 during tentative allocations. The next application was from CAPMC for Housing Stabilization Program and to do a rapid rehousing program and project, and the Block Grant Commission's recommendation was $345,027. Similarly, City Council tentatively allocated the same amount. The next application was from Habitat for Humanity, Greater Fresno area, and that is for their City of Madera exterior paint grant program. That was recommended at $75,000 by the Block Grant Commission, and council concurred with the same amount. Another application was from City of Madera Parks and Community Services, the McNally Park Rehabilitation, McNally Rehabilitation and Improvement. That application, the Block Grant Commission recommended not fund, and council during the tentative allocation meeting also agreed not to fund that project. The next application was from the City of Madera Public
Yvette, excuse me, we're having trouble hearing you. I'm not sure if it's a microphone.
I'll speak a little louder. Is this
That's
a little
better? Thank you.
So the next application was from the City of Madera Public Works Department, and that is for sidewalk and ADA corner ramp improvements. The request was at $500,000, and both the Block Grant Commission as recommendation as well as City Council's tentative allocation were in concurrence at $500,000. That brings the total, both recommended by the Block Grant Commission as well as City Council's tentative allocation for this category to $980,027.
Now, part of the requirement that HUD has when allocating these funds annually is a 30-day public comment period in between the two public hearings. So during the 30-day public comment period, there were a total of 8 public comments that city staff received. And that public comment period expired July 16, 2021 at 5 p.m. Yvette?
So a total of 8 public comments were received during the public comment period. The table will list the date that the public comment was received, by whom, and regarding which organization. I will read the names as well as the date of the receipt of the public comment, and we will leave the slide in front of you to read the summaries of the comments. So the first one was received on July 2nd by Karen Purcell, and that was in regards to Doors of Hope. The next comment came through on July 10th from Barbara Thomason in regards to Doors of Hope. The next comment came through on July 16th from Katia Gonzalez in regards to Pequeños Empresarios. The remaining comments are also in regards to Pequeños Empresarios and were received on the same date by Pedro Capon. Also by Felisa Cruz Mendoza, by Karen Pita, by Luz Elena Van Winkle, and by Jennifer Chavez. Mr. Mayor, if you want me to summarize the comments, I can do that, or just keep the screen on longer.
I think since this is a requirement, I think it would be, if you could just quickly go through those, I think it would be beneficial and probably the best thing to do.
The previous slide, Alex, please. So the comment by Karen Purcell regarding Doors of Hope is essentially requesting to consider an increased grant amount to $31,005 for Doors of Hope. The next one by Ms. Thomason in regards to Doors of Hope is also asking to reconsider increasing the grant amount. The one by Katia Gonzalez regarding Pequeños Empresarios, that one is emphasizing positive outcome, was emphasizing the positive outcomes from the Pequeños Empresarios program. The one by Mr. Capon regarding Pequeños Empresarios is mentioning the lack of funding that the organization faces and expressing the need for more funding. The comment by Felisa Mendoza in regards to Pequeños Empresarios, she discusses the child's success after graduating from the program, the children's successes after graduating from the program. Ms. Pita, in regards to Pequeños Empresarios, mentions the great impacts, discusses the greater impacts the organization could have with additional funding. The comment from Ms. Van Winkle regarding Pequeños Empresarios is requesting additional support for the organization, just generally expressing that the organization would benefit greatly from more support. And the comment from Ms. Chavez in regards to Pequeños Empresarios also mentions that additional financial support for the organization would be greatly beneficial.
Now, for our next steps, we would like to request that council open our public hearing, the public hearing. We also ask council to make final funding allocations. Also ask to adopt resolutions approving the CDBG subrecipient agreements. And lastly, city staff will submit the 2021-2022 annual action plan for HUD review. Are there any questions?
I believe, Alicia, we have a caller wanting to make a comment from the public.
Actually, Mayor, I have an email from Baldwin Moy, and I can read that now.
Yes, please.
Dear Mayor Garcia and members of the City Council, it is respectfully requested that the City Council reconsider its recommendation and increase the award for the Madera Youth Street Art Project in an amount that is sufficient to allow for its successful implementation. The project serves the twin goal of neighborhood rehabilitation, downtown revitalization, and youth leadership development. We submit that both are glaring needs in the city, and the project will be a true asset in addressing those issues. MCCJ has a true and tried track record to ensuring the attainment of those goals. Thank you for your kind consideration of the comments made. Baldwin Moy.
Thank you very much for that. Bring it back to my colleagues. Do anyone have any questions or comments regarding the CDBG funds? I don't see any hands raised. Then I will entertain a motion from my colleagues.
I move to approve C1 as presented.
Second.
Motion to approve item C1 by Councilmember Montes, second by Councilmember Gallegos. Alicia, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Gallegos,
Yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez is absent. Councilmember Montes,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Villegas,
Yes.
Mayor Garcia.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously with 4 yes votes.
Thank you very much for that report. Yvette, thank you very much for all that hard work you guys are doing in grants to make that happen. We will now move on to item D, petitions, bids, resolutions, ordinances, and agreements. Item D1, confirmed diagram and assessment for citywide landscape and lighting.
Mayor, if I may, at the approval of the agenda, we moved item D1 to C2.
D2.
So it should be D1 should, we are still in public hearing section and we should be calling item C2.
All right. I believe item C2, that was with you, Keith?
Yes, Mayor. Actually, Nicole will be presenting this particular report.
Thank you very much. Nicole?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Tonight is our second presentation about landscape maintenance districts. I will share my PowerPoint with you. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this, for everyone present, this will mostly be a review, but for anyone on the phone or watching online, we will recap the slides from last week and we have a little bit of additional information. So this is the 2021-2022 Landscape Maintenance District Annual Engineers Report. Just some background information. This is formed through state law and the Landscape and Lighting Act of 1972, usually formed by developers, otherwise a vote is required. It allows for parcel owners to participate in the cost of landscaping that benefits the property. And without this tool, the ability to provide landscape areas might be diminished if all costs were borne solely by the city. The engineer's report is prepared on an annual basis. It incorporates past expenses, revenues, projects expenses and revenues for the upcoming year, and makes recommendations on adjustments and assessments based on data that is populated from the city's accounting system, Munis. This year it incorporates everything that Parks has learned about the zones over the last 4 years. As stated last meeting, Proposition 218 hearings will not be occurring this year. The COVID-19 pandemic has increased the yearly construction cost index significantly over prior years. It's actually gone up ever so slightly since our last meeting. And 182 parcels were added to Zone 21D from the Melanie Meadows and Rancho Santa Fe subdivisions. Next year, we are proposing resuming Proposition 218 hearings. We anticipate that we will be able to accumulate the data that we need within the time needed to initiate these hearings. We will pursue the merger of zones 10 through 10I. We will also be coordinating with the city attorney to determine if her experience suggests a path which LMD management within the law can be simplified, reducing potential for new zones, and having greater flexibility in managing fund balances or deficits. So as mentioned previously, outstanding proposals is merging zones 10A through I. The current assessments range from $17.22 to $33.09 per parcel. The benefits of this merger is 9 less zones, along with the complexities of managing those zones, and consolidating where zone sharing is not equal from one landscape area to another between those zones. One of the biggest impediments to this is the Proposition 218 history of success. Just a recap on the map. On the left, you will see all of the zones together and their shared landscaping areas. and excuse me, and essentially this will just consolidate them and make it easier to administer for staff and more equally distribute the cost of landscaping amongst all of these zones if they were to be combined into a single zone. Items since last meeting, as mentioned, we investigated zones 41 and zones 43A. In zone 41, we discovered that several years ago, balances provided to staff by the finance from the accounting software were apparently incorrect. This occurred over several annual reports, and once that data was incorporated into the assessment calculations for this zone, it showed amounts that did not reflect what was available for the actual maintenance of the zones. We've identified this issue, we've remedied it, and we will apply as minimal of an increase as possible on the assessment to keep the zone, keep it trending in a positive direction. Given the situation, staff has adjusted the normal methodology of how assessments are adjusted in an attempt to minimize the magnitude of a one-year change in proposed assessments. A moderate increase will be applied this year and a smaller increase over the next several years. This runs counter to the normal assessment methodology, but given the magnitude of the previously proposed assessment and the above mentioned issues, staff feels is warranted to move the zone an upward trajectory in the most minimal way possible. As far as zone 43A, we discovered a planned transfer of funds from prior fiscal year from an account that incorrectly contained zones 43A funds did not occur as anticipated by staff and engineering. Had the transfer occurred as planned, the fund balance in the zone would have increased the amount of surplus, and that would have resulted in a reduced impact on assessments. We've actually worked with finance, and those funds have taken place. It's been approved, and they have been moved into this zones fund. And we have adjusted the assessments accordingly. So thank you to Roger and the finance staff for helping us work through that. Last meeting's actions, council tentatively approved the engineer's report with no request amendments and adopted the resolution of intention to levy and collect proposed annual assessments. Tonight's actions would be to conduct a public hearing and receive public comment, address any unresolved comments, and again, and if any are present, adopt the engineer's report and maybe revise as needed. And adopting the resolution conforming the diagram and annual assessment is set forth in the engineer's report, and authorize and direct the city clerk to file diagram and assessments with the auditor with the County of Madera. And that is it. Do we have any questions or comments?
Do we have any questions or comments from our council members? I believe, who is this? Who's raising their hand in the council chamber?
It's me, Mayor. So Nicole, I just wanted to see if you have the graphic of the attachments. I know we have different attachments in the staff report that we get.
Councilmember Montes, could you speak a little louder? You're very faint.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I just want to see if you can you show the attachment 3 that actually shows the current and proposed. I know it's in the staff report. There you go. I just wanted to, just for the public's benefit, if they have any questions of what it is and what it's going to. I know you gave an explanation, but this really helps kind of illustrate what's going on. That's all I wanted to make. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alicia, do we have any members of the public wishing to speak on this item?
Not at this time, Mayor.
I will bring it back to council for a motion.
Mayor, move to approve item C2.
I'll second that. Motion to approve item C2 by Councilmember Montes, second by myself. Alicia, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Gallegos,
Yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez is absent. Councilmember Montes.
Yes.
Councilmember Evans is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Villegas.
Yes.
Mayor
Yes.
Garcia.
Yes.
Motion passes with 4 yes votes.
Thank you very much, Nicole, for that report.
Thank you.
Good job. Great job.
Thank you.
I believe next we will move on to item D, the petitions, bids, resolution, ordinances, and agreements. I believe this item is labeled D2, Award of Street Project Contract 2020-2021. Keith, do you have this item?
I do, but Victor Aldama will be presenting this particular one.
Okay, Victor.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Let me share my screen real quick, and members of the public. Let me know once you see my screen.
Yep, we're here.
All right, I'm here tonight to announce another exciting news. There's another project going to construction. This project is for the 2021 City Streets 3R and 88 project. State project number SB1 LLPL 5157-120, also known as city project number R71. Brief history about the project. This project was advertised back in June 2nd of this year, and it opened bids in July 1st. Luckily, we did receive 4 contractors that provided a proposal. The lowest bidder was Avison Construction, Inc. After the review of their proposal, it has been determined that they were the lowest responsive and responsible bid. This project was made possible through the funding of LPP state funds with an amount of $306,000 with a matching source of $326,000 from Measure T. The overall anticipated construction cost is approximately $598,000. If council approves this contract during tonight's meeting, the anticipated completion of the project is November 2021. So this is a brief overall location map showing the different areas that the project is located at. I'm going to give it a quick moment, then I'm going to turn to the next screen. Right. In conclusion, it is staff recommendations to award the contract to Avison Construction, Inc. in the amount of $543,000, $543,891. There you go. And then overall, I wanted to share an overall map of past accomplishments and current accomplishments throughout the city. It's kind of an exciting map outlining all of the projects that's related to seals and overlay over the past 4 years. As you can see, it's scattered all around town. Just kind of wanted to give an overall view of that. All right, just gonna open it up for questions now.
Thank you very much, Victor.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any public comment, Alicia?
Not at this time, Mayor.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to my colleagues. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council for action.
So move to approve D2 as presented.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Gallegos to accept D2 as presented, seconded by Councilmember Montes. Alicia, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Gallegos?
Yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez is absent. Councilmember Montes?
Yes.
Councilmember Evans is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Villegas?
Yes.
Mayor Garcia?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you much. We move on to item D3. Again, thank you very much for that report. Memorandum of Understanding with General Bargaining Unit, GBU, represented by the Madera Affiliated City Employees Association. I believe, Wendy, you have this item?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and fellow City Council members. You have previously in recent meetings seen 3 different memorandums of understanding. This is your 4th bargaining unit. It's the general bargaining unit. They're represented by Madera Affiliated City Employees Association. The city did meet with the representatives of that unit and come to terms on a new MOU. In summary, it is a 4-year agreement beginning July 21, 2021, assuming it is adopted this evening, and going through June 30, 2025. The MOU includes a 2% cost of living adjustment each year and a $1,500 lump sum payment to each employee each year of the agreement for the 4 years. The city's health contribution, similar to your other bargaining units, will be set equal to the core plan for Anthem and Kaiser, inclusive of dental and vision insurance. Bereavement leave will be increased from 3 days to 5 days for out-of-state passing of family members. The MOU does include the holiday closure for employees represented by MACEA. This is most city offices, non-emergency services are closed between Christmas Day and New Year's Day. And this will occur for 4 years. The pay range assignment, the city did agree to meet with representatives of MACEA within 90 days of adoption of this agreement to discuss some concerns they have over pay range assignments in the streets and water divisions of Public Works. Any discussions there are not effective unless council were to adopt an open session changes to the salary schedule. So staff will be bringing that back at a later date. The new MOU includes a 5% pay incentive if a wastewater treatment plant operator were to obtain their grade 4 certification from the state of California. It also includes some additional tool allowance for the mechanics. They currently receive $300 per year. The new MOU will provide for an additional $300 on a reimbursement basis. And then some language was clarified between the city and the bargaining unit regarding jury duty and when employees are required to report for their shift at the start of the workday before they report for jury duty. So the year 1 costs related to salary, the cost of living adjustment is approximately $121,000. The lump sum payment is approximately $145,000. So the total year 1 cost related to salary is just under $267,000. Subsequent years, that cost will be dependent on your employee count at the time, classification of employees, and their years of service or merit step at that time. Health benefits, as everyone knows by now, we made a big change, and we have what we anticipated to be a lower renewal than what we would have otherwise experienced. We're still cleaning up those enrollments and making some final corrections, and we'll have some final numbers on what the split was between enrollment and Anthem and Kaiser, and a better understanding of where that ended up here shortly. The value of the holiday closure, just using 4 days per employee as an estimate, is $95,000 for this bargaining unit when we close for those 4 days between the holidays. The source of funds to pay the costs that we just discussed, the COLA was accounted for in your annual operating budget, and future COLAs will also be in your annual operating budget for each year. The lump sum payment and the increase to the health insurance cap will be paid from the city's general fund unassigned fund balance, regardless of the employee's normal expensing department. So the requested action this evening is to approve the MOU with the general bargaining unit effective July 21, 2021 through June 30, 2025. Authorize the city manager to sign the MOU, and then authorize the director of financial services to designate and classify reserves from the general fund unassigned fund balance into the assigned classification for the portion of health insurance increase and one-time employee annual payouts related to the 4-year MOU. Are there any questions I can answer related to the proposed agreement?
I don't see any hands raised at this time from my colleagues. Alicia, do we have any public comment?
Not at this time, Mayor.
Thank you very much. We'll bring it back to council for action.
So moved to approve D3 as presented.
Second.
Motion to approve D3 by Councilwoman Gallegos, second by Councilmember Montes. Alicia, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Gallegos?
Yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez is absent. Councilmember Montes?
Yes.
Councilmember Evans, absent. Mayor Pro Tem Villegas,
Yes.
Mayor Garcia,
Yes.
motion passes 4-0.
Thank you very much, Wendy, for your great help in getting this done. For the first time, I believe we're doing 4-year contracts with our employees. We'll have labor peace for the next 4 years. Everyone will know exactly what they're getting paid and what kind of benefits they receive. So thank you very much for that work. We will now move on to item E, administrative reports, retail sales tax update by Roger Sanchez.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I wanted to give a quick update on the retail sales taxes and the amounts that we're receiving for the first quarter of 2021. So I'd like to share, I'll share my screen here. So this is for the first, can you see my screen?
Yes.
So this is for the first quarter of 2021. That is the receipts of money related to sales taxes from January to March of 2021. So the receipts is $2.6 million. As you can see, this is the breakdown of different categories. So we have the pool that is from online sales, allocation, restaurants and hotels, general consumer goods, fuel services, food and drugs, business and industry, building and constructions, and autos. And this is information from a historical perspective. So as you can see, the green is the budget amount at different fiscal years, and the blue is the actual amount. Now, notice that the 2021 is below budget, but that's because we're still receiving money. We will receive money in August and a portion in September. So mainly in August to be recorded for the 2021 fiscal year. So we're projecting that it's going to surpass the $10 million, which will be at a record compared to a previous year. So positive news there. Now, as you notice, the growth in the actual amounts, it's been consistent growth in the sales taxes. I do want to give you a word of caution that for next year and for subsequent years, it should flatten out at about $10 to $10.5 million. So, but overall, very, very good news on sales taxes. So again, it's going to surpass this budget amount once we close the books. On Measure K, this is a similar overview. Historical perspective, we look at the budget and the actual amounts. Again, we expect once we close the books for the 2021, for the total revenues related to Measure K sales taxes, it should surpass, it'll be greater than the budget. The Poole County allocation, as you can see, the amount from a historical perspective, again, the 2021 is not over yet. We still expect to receive more, and it's going to surpass the previous year as far as the online sales. This is, we're diving a little closer into the first quarter, and we're doing a comparison between the 2021 versus the same quarter on 2020. So this is, if you look at this area, this is for the city of Madera, this is for the county of Madera, and this is a statewide. So to look at, we can see that the total for the city of Madera is $2 million, and this is point of sale. This is excluding the online sales. This is only for local businesses here. So $2 million compared to the previous year at $1.8 million, we see over $200,000 increase, close to 14% increase. very positive news. A slight decrease on the business and industry, but that's about it. Everything else, we see increases on all the other categories. Again, excellent news. Madera has recovered compared to the previous quarters. They were not, we were in much better shape, and we still are, but it has recovered significantly. Also with the state, it has recovered compared to the previous quarters. This is again the first quarter. It's exact same information as this one for the city, except that it's on a chart. So it gives you the previous year's quarter compared to the current 2021 first quarter. So you can see increases across the board, with the exception of business and industry, but everything else, it's been an increase. And here's the pool. That is the allocation from online sales, which is the biggest one. The Madera unemployment rate, from a historical perspective, you can see through the peak of the pandemic at a very high unemployment rate, but it has improved, it has decreased. I would like to note that this June 2021 is a preliminary number. Most likely this is going to be adjusted in a few weeks, so you can see where the unemployment is at Madera region. I'm using the May 2021 unemployment rate because that's been revised and reviewed. So this comes from the state numbers. And I just wanted to give you a perspective on how we're looking. So at the national level, we have a 5.5%, California 7.5%. Madera is slightly above the California. You can see Fresno, Madera is below Fresno, and LA with high unemployment, and then San Diego. This is just to give you a perspective on how things are looking. And so that's all I have. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Lisa, do we have any public comment on this item?
Not at this time, Mayor.
Thank you. Colleagues, this is informational only. Does anyone have any comments or questions? No? All righty. Well, thank you very much, Roger, for this report. Thank you very much. We now move on to item F, council member reports, announcements, and future agenda items. This portion of the meeting is reserved for mayor and council members to make brief reports on boards, committees, and other public agencies and at public events, to request updates, to initiate future agenda items, and to take action on matters initiated under this section of the agenda. Under this section, the council may take action only on items specifically agendized and which meet other requirements for action. Councilwoman Gallegos.
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. I'd just like to do a shout out and a thank you to Mark and Joseph to do a prototype and have myself. And I would like to thank Councilman Montez for his leadership on joining me tonight. I encourage and hope my colleagues have the courage to also be here in City Hall with us. They did a great job. It's still ironing out some of the bugs. I know I saw a lot of surprised faces from our staff, especially our city manager was like, whoa, what are they doing? So we're figuring it all out. So when we do come back in person, we're ready to fly and go with it. So thank you for your time.
Councilmember Montes.
Yeah, Mayor, I would also like to thank staff for putting up with us, first of all, and making our request possible. Other than that, nothing to report.
Councilmember Villegas.
I have nothing.
Short meeting tonight. I think that for myself, I was honored to be able to present members of our staff awards for retirement and also promotions. It was a good event highlighting our folks in the MPOA. And so I want to thank very much for the invitation. We will now move on to our closed session. Hilda, would you please take us to closed session now?
Thank you, Mayor. There is one item in closed session tonight. G1, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, consideration of the initiation of litigation under Government Code Section 54956.9 D4, 1 case, City of Madera versus CalPERS.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you all for attending this meeting tonight. Thank you all staff to everyone. Please have a good rest of your evening. Good night.
Thank you, Mayor. The City Council met in closed session. Members Rodriguez and Evans were not present. The council determined not to pursue any litigation at this time.
Thank you very much for that. I now call this meeting to be adjourned. Our next regular meeting will be on August 4th, 2021. The time is 8:08. Thank you very much for your participation, and you all have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.